this show. Now, this morning, there's news coming out of Parliament. Actually, it started last night. And this is a story that is captured by MyJoy Online at 6:49 p.m., where it says Parliament freezes approval of EC's constitutional instrument as committee ranking member is accused of doctoring report. And the story says Parliament has frozen approval of the Subsidiary Legislation Committee's report on the Electoral Commission's controversial constitutional instrument. The CI was to give backing to the Electoral Commission's request to compile a new voters register. But after the chairman of the committee accused the ranking member of doctoring the report, Parliament could not debate and approve it on Friday, June 5, 2020, ahead of the maturing of the CI on Tuesday. Deputy Minority Whip Ibrahim Ahmed told the House that Denta MP Yao Boabia Samoa had edited and deformed the chairman, Dr. Dominic Ayine's reports. And so that's what is coming out of Parliament. It was supposed to have been debated and then approved, or perhaps whatever happens to it yesterday, but that didn't happen. And that's the reason that is happening. And so that is one of the stories that we are paying attention to, among several others. This week has been a very interesting week, kicked off by the president's 10th broadcast, where he lifted the restriction, eased the restrictions. In fact, he confirmed Dr. Sribo's claim, Dr. Sribo of the Electoral Commission's claim, that the EC and NIA were exempted from the restriction from the very outset, and then went on to make some announcement. But the speech of the week was the address that was delivered by the Minister for Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs. It was so interesting, it left some churches deciding not to open their doors at all. Others say they are still studying it. And the National Chief Imam also issued a statement saying that major mosques should not be open because of the kind of guidelines that was put forward by the minister. We'll take a short break. When we'll come back, I'll introduce my panel and the topics that we'll be talking about. This is Alhaji and Alhaji, live on Pan-African television. Here we say it as it is, no matter who is involved, and then we'll leave you better educated. We are back shortly.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer and the champion of liberty, of human equality. Let's salute him, fellow Ghanaians, the nation's founder, Sajifo Kwame Nkrumah. May God bless him. Africa's great songs.
Welcome back from that short break. And if you just join us, the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji, live on Pan-African television, live on Ahunto 92.3 FM. On Facebook, we are on Pan-African television. The link is shared on Radio Gold 905 FM. If you like listening through the internet, you can use Ahunto 92.3 FM. If you're using any of the radio streaming apps, or you can listen to us through Radio Gold 90.5, and you can listen to us clearly. A big thank you to our partner stations that are providing the opportunity for others across the country to listen to us. This morning, we are talking about the Electoral Commission's pilot registration. Happened earlier in the week, 2 days. The Electoral Commission said, aside the Western region, the exercise has been largely successful, or successful, not even largely, they didn't use the word largely. So, was successful. The other political parties disagree. And so we'll be talking about that issue, plus what is happening in Parliament in terms of the CI. Then we'll go back to Sunday, because on Sunday the President announced the easing of the restrictions and the matters arising subsequently. A lot has happened this week. And then we'll spend some time talking about a very good friend Bernard Mona's invitation to the CID and the issues being raised about free speech, because in the week, somewhere in the week, a journalist was invited to the CID headquarters. His prediction of the president's address before he delivered it was too accurate. That was why he was invited to the CID headquarters. So we're talking about those issues and free speech. An attempt, is there an ongoing attempt to suppress free speech? That's the question we'll be answering in our third topic. This morning, I'm joined in the studio, of course, by Mr. Kwesi Pradjina, who is managing editor of the Insight newspaper, a regular panelist on the program. Sitting beside him is Mr. Alex Segbefia, who is director of International Affairs of the National Democratic Congress, a member of the COVID-19 technical team of the same party, and the former Minister of Health. And closer to me is Mujib Rahman, who is a member of the communications team of the New Patriotic Party, and then Alhassan S. Suhini, no stranger to this program, and also member of parliament for Tamale North. Thank you very much for making time. My name is Sena Nombo. So we'll start with the issues having to do with the EC's pilot, and then I'll start from my left with Honorable Suhini, especially because of that interesting news that's coming from Parliament. So, Honorable, good morning.
Good morning. Sena, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. Let me say good morning to my senior colleagues on the platform, and also to my brother Mujib, and also say a very good morning to our viewers, especially the good people of the Tamale North constituency. It's always a pleasure to be on this platform, and especially the quality of listenership that the program continued to garner. Like I did the last time I was on the platform, those who are keeping the flames burning, deserve all the commendation that you can get. Now, yes, yesterday Parliament was interesting. I'll start on that note because I was there, and it had to do with the report of the Subsidiary Legislation Committee regarding the CI that EC laid before Parliament. There was controversy over whether the report is ready to be laid or not. And the controversy arose because it is one of the few committees in Parliament that is chaired by the minority. So the committee chair, Dr. Ayini, did a report after a meeting with stakeholders, EC and others, for the review and approval of other committee members. And then he presented his report as courtesy demands. It's not part of our protocols, but our standing orders, but as courtesy demands, he shared a copy of the report with his ranking, who happens to be Honorable Boabina Samoa. And Honorable Boabina Samoa, as ranking, decided to go against our standing orders and vary the report entirely. And like Honorable Dominic Ayini said on the floor of Parliament yesterday, made substantial changes that watered down and took the effect of whatever the report was supposed to convey out, and sought to present what he varied as the report of the committee, which is alien to the practices in Parliament. Because according to our standing orders, it is the committee chair who generates the report and then submits same before committee members for their inputs before it is then submitted on behalf of the committee to the plenary for consideration. In this case, the ranking member, after altering what was, given him by the chairman, sought to present the altered report. And that is why perhaps the news reports are suggesting that, what was the word used? That he changed the...
Yeah, doctored.
He doctored the report. That's why it is suggested that he doctored the report. So the speaker had to call for the chairman to give his side of the story after some objections from our side. And I think that based on the evidence that was adduced by the chairman of the committee, the speaker saw it necessary to adjourn the House and ask the committee to go back and look at the report and come back with a report that is acceptable to all. and that will also capture everything. So that's all about what happened in relation to the CI. It would have been taken yesterday, and given the stance of both political parties, it is possible it would have been passed because it only needs the majority to pass it anyway. But because of this, technical challenge, it has been adjourned, and perhaps on Tuesday, if the report is ready, we'll consider it. Now, on the pilot that the EC did, should I say I'm surprised that the EC thinks it was successful? I'll be dishonest if I say so, because clearly the EC and its new leadership exudes nothing but shameless dishonesty in their approach to the conduct of the 2020 general elections. Look, first of all, after the referendum and after the District Assembly elections, they came out to tell us how credible the whole exercise was. And within a twinkle of an eye, they are going back on their words and seeking to convince all of us how bad a system we have as far as the electoral roll and the system that is available to use it for the 2020 general elections is concerned, without recourse to their earlier praises heaped on that system that was used for the referendum and the District Assembly elections. Apart from that, you also know what happened in Ayawaso Wagon. What was the verdict of the EC? Successful and peaceful. Even the EC did not feel, frightened, or if you like, intimidated to go against the position of Kodio, which is, in my view, in our current circumstance, more credible than the leadership of the EC. I'm not talking about the EC, but the leadership of the EC. So Kodio gave a report about what happened in Ayawaso Wagon, apart from what we all witnessed and saw. Yet the EC said it was successful and peaceful. So if after all the reports that we have heard from all the regions where BVR machines showed they already had some existing names on them when they were supposed to be new, where in some cases, we are told a picture of a woman was the one on the, card after a man went through the process. Where we are told that it took 30 to 50 minutes for one person to successfully register. And given the numbers that we expect to register, by my, calculation, you are talking about 50 hours to register 100 people a day. 50 hours to register 100 people a day. That is if you choose the less, minutes. That's 30. If you choose 30, you are talking about 50 hours to register 100 people. Because the EC, I'm told, is expecting that every station will register 100 people a day. So if you are using 30 minutes, you are talking about 50 hours to register 100 people. So even in a day, you can't get that. So despite all these things that we have heard from the various regions, and the very poor quality of cards that we have seen, the Electoral Commission is shamelessly telling us that it was successful, even though one region had to even suspend the whole exercise. The others, with all the problems, endured. And the least the EC can do is to be honest about the challenges, because That is the use of a pilot program. A pilot program is not supposed to be perfect. So what is the need to lie about the problems that you encounter in the pilot program and declare it and seek to declare it successful, when clearly it's not been successful? The fact that a pilot is not entirely successful does not mean you cannot implement your project. It only means that you need to put in place measures that will mitigate against the challenges that you have seen. So admitting that the pilot was a flop is not, the same as saying because of that you can't go ahead. But it shows that you are honest, and it shows that you can be trusted. Unfortunately, this is not this doesn't seem like an electoral commission that cares about being trusted. It just cares about showing power. But fortunately, this week, something has happened with the Supreme Court that has given hope to some of us that probably the Supreme Court will speak in the greater interest of the majority of Ghanaians. Because the EC was seeking to make nonsense, like we say in Ghana, in local parlance, to make nonsense of the case that was filed by the NDC. But the Supreme Court applied the brakes on them and requested that they, give legal reasons why they should make nonsense of that case. It may not be any victory, yes, but it is, for me, an indication that perhaps the Supreme Court is willing to listen, and because they are willing to listen, I am hopeful that their decision will be in the greater interest of Ghanaians and not the NDC. Because this is not about the National Democratic Congress. It's about the vast majority of Ghanaians who, by virtue of our constitution, are entitled to be citizens and to hold themselves up as citizens and carry out their responsibilities as citizens. And one cardinal responsibility every citizen has is to ensure that he or she is part of the choice of leadership. It must be expressed by every citizen willing to do so. And nobody should be, nothing should be put in the way of any citizen if he or she wishes to take up that responsibility. So I'm hopeful. But maybe it is important that one takes the opportunity not to take the wind out of the sail of our very capable lawyer, Honorable Segbefia, who is in charge of our international relations at the party headquarters, because I know he will be delving into it. But just to clarify, the position of the NDC as far as this whole brouhaha around the Electoral Commission is concerned. Sena, the NDC is not necessarily against the review of a register, of a voter register. Why? It is the mandate of the Electoral Commission to review the register, like the Constitution says, to compile a register and review it from time to time. What the NDC is against is the timing of the review and the reasons given for the review. Nobody can challenge the mandate of the Electoral Commission to review a register or to compile a register. It's a constitutional mandate of the Electoral Commission. But as stakeholders and as participants, we can question the timing, we can question the reasoning behind that review. And we are saying that the timing is wrong. One because of the inconvenience to all of us, political parties, individuals, and even to the Electoral Commission, and also because of our example in 2012 that led to civil society organizations cautioning against the compilation of a register in an election year because of the tension associated with it, which can be transferred to the election period. That is why we have an issue with the timing. Again, as signatories to the protocols on good governance and democracy under ECOWAS, clearly, Article 2.1 of that protocol frowns upon countries changing significantly the laws that will govern elections 6 months before the elections. So now we are almost 6 months to our elections. Yes. Yet you have a law in Parliament seeking to change significantly the laws that will govern this year's elections. So, and that change is what will enable the Electoral Commission compile a register that we think is needless. So those are issues with the timing. Then you have the reasoning given, which we are against. The reasoning, the reason why the EC says we should do a new register is because they claim the current one is not credible. Why is it not credible? Even though we have used it recently to demarcate regions and elect assembly members, they say there are ghosts in that register. Yes. The rebuttal to that is, if you compile a register tomorrow, when people die the next day or even that same day, will that be a good reason to ask for another register? So the point is that every register will always have ghosts. But the current register we have ensures that no ghosts can vote because it is biometric. And so the ghosts cannot come back from their graves to be verified and to vote. Then they claim that, there are non-Ghanaians who had access to the primary documents that were used to register. And so when we compile ours, non-Ghanaians will not have the opportunity to be on it. Sena, and the documents they are seeking to use to ensure that happens are the passport and the national identification card. I don't know about the national identification card. But I've been in the media long enough and followed news long enough to know that the Ghanaian passport is not owned by only Ghanaians. In fact, Anas Samuel Anas did an expose in the passport office where somebody used former President Kufuor's picture to acquire a passport. Nigerians every now and then, Liberians and all other nationals every now and then are arrested with Ghanaian passports. So we are saying the reason that is given for the compilation of the register does not make sense. So it's not just about timing, it's also about the reasoning. And then the costs, which we find very prohibitive and unnecessary. And even the application of the amount, the budget that is allocated to them. It is not just the NDC. In fact, Imani and others are questioning the procedures that are used to even apply that unnecessary costly budget that has been allocated for this exercise. The selection and procurement procedures that are all breached. Those are our concerns. And the procedure of even compiling the register, like I have I've said, the CI that is before Parliament will only allow Ghanaians with, passports and Ghana cards to participate. And we are saying that that procedure, even if you forget the timing issue and you forget the costs and you forget the unreasonable reasons that are given, and you want to even look at the procedure, I mean, if you forget all of that and say, okay, compile a register, even the procedure used is flawed. Because the procedure will lead to majority of Ghanaians who are qualified and should be on the register and should have the opportunity to decide the fate of this government and other political parties will be denied the opportunity with this procedure that is being used. We have less than 5 million, 6 million people put to exclude. Even the birth certificate, that is the primary document used to get the passport, is not allowed. And I listened to, and that's just me wrapping up, I listened to a press conference that was organized by some Christian, interest group, I think in the Upper East or Upper West, I don't remember, this week. The Northern region. And for me, the one who addressed the press conference on behalf of his colleagues said something instructive. What makes Madame Jean Mensa and her people think that all other identification cards in this country were not correctly compiled, and they are those ordained by God to give us cards that will make us truly Ghanaians? What makes them think that they have that, what do they call it? Divine right. What makes them think DS cannot be wrong? I mean, that mindset. And if I were Madame Jean Mensa, I would have been more careful. Because for me, I said it even at the time that she was appointed, that I don't think the president thought through very well before deciding to appoint her, given her track record of her consistent running battles with at least one major political party in this country at the IEA. If I were the president, I would have thought twice before considering her, because she has been on record of always being at loggerheads with at least one major political party. So to appoint such a person to become a referee, if I were a president, I would have thought twice about it. But then I gave her the benefit of the doubt, and I thought and said that perhaps when she goes there, she will conduct herself in a way that will show that she was a different person at civil society and will be different as referee. But it looks like she just enjoys those running battles. I just hope she does not, in that intransigence, lead this country into the abyss. Okay. I pray that good sense prevails. Okay. I pray that in the end, the interest of this country and the peace that we have are preserved.
Thank you very much, Honorable Suhuyini. A couple of your messages before I move to Mujib Rahman. Berma will say to okay, from Otum for the convener of Crossfire Ghana, he says, I sometimes laugh when people are shocked at the behavior of the adherents of the UP tradition. Dominica Ine MP has really disgraced the MPP in Parliament. Who knows how many of such documents have been tampered with? Our God is able. As for the EC, leave them, because they can't destabilize the nation. We will be citizens, not spectators. Thank you very much. Habib Bantus is also saying that the EC, okay, the arrogance of the EC is because the presidency is behind it. How could a deputy minister say if NDC touches the EC, they have touched MPP? No wonder every crucial decision of the EC, John Boydu announces it first, but the Supreme Court has the chance to safeguard our democracy. Else no Ghanaian, okay, you say we'll trust the Supreme Court again. Arise, Ghana youth, for your country. The nation demands our devotion. Let us all unite to uphold it. Okay. Baba Musa in China says, mourning George Floyd in Ghana is okay, but it exposes the crass hypocrisy of President Kufuor's government. A gentleman was shot dead by a military man during the 3 weeks lockdown in parts of Ghana. We never saw the government showing such sympathy to the family of the deceased. Ahmed Hussein Suale, killed in front of his home by assailants over 1 year on, government is dragging its feet on the matter. Nor has the police arrested his killers. In 2017, Captain Mahama was killed by some residents of Denchwa Wasi while he was on duty. What has become of the case now? This desperate attempt to be noticed by the International Community while in Ghana. where things are happening is shameful. Sena, tell Chief Benamona that he's a true son of the North, and we are proud of him. Let me hear with Dennis Yakwete, who said, Sena, it was sad to have watched TV3 this. Okay. Okay. All right. You're raising an issue that I didn't witness. And then you continue to say, you're claiming that Dr. Sribo says, okay, when he said that in procuring passport, one has to have guarantors in addition to birth certificate as a requirement, in its response to a suggestion by the host for the EC to at least for the first time consider birth certificate as one of the primary documents requirement for voters registration. For Christ's sake, guarantors in the context of procuring Ghana passport is only for the purpose of liability should a holder of a passport die abroad or in any events involving liability. So, okay. Thank you very much for that message. Mujib?
Yeah. Sena, thank you very much for the opportunity, and I'll beg you to use your medium to congratulate the President, His Excellency Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo. I don't know if you read the National Council meeting report of the New Patriotic Party. The President now is the flag bearer of the New Patriotic Party.
Finally, we have a flag bearer.
But is that allowed by the Constitution?
Well, it's not true. It's not the flag bearer.
Well,
the National Council has endorsed him, but the National Council doesn't choose the flag bearer.
No, but that is it. But I am coming to the point. As at the open and close of nomination, I'm coming. It is only no, but at least it is only he's the only one who has filed. And this, the National Executive Committee of the party endorsed that at the council level, at the National Council level, it was also endorsed. And what we need to do, if we listen to the General Secretary of the party, is to put modalities in place for the larger group constituency region to do what we call acclamation. That is how it is. But for now, the President is the sole person who has filed, and the National Executive Committee of the party endorsed him. So I am be surprised anybody will be saying that as at now we are sitting, he's not the flag bearer of the New Patriotic Party. Maybe you may have your own views and reasons, but as far as the report is there, and as far as the New Patriotic Party is concerned, as a political party in Ghana, we have a flag bearer. But Senator, thank you very much. Sir, thank you. Chama say over your opportunity into over Casa. Maybe say one cover file. So I can't be say contested president. I'm not
well, he's only referring to your own constitution.
No, but this is not. No, but I'm also referring to the constitution. But Chama has always disagreed with the constitution. Chama, even there's now when you come to independent of the Electoral Commission, he said they are not independent. Meanwhile, when you go to the Constitution, and it's not him or me or anybody, it is the framers of the Constitution of which we all accepted. But Chama always disagree on the independence of the Electoral Commission. So let's leave that one aside. Sena, on the compilation of the new voters register and EC ballot exercise and other related matters. I am not surprised. The debate is still on. The position people have taken entrenched position, especially the National Democratic Congress, though there had been inconsistencies along the line on their part. But the long and short of it is that maybe if the Electoral Commission can back down on their decision to go ahead and compile a new register, I think that will satisfy them. But I think I want to make it clear, Sena, that this is the only country we have. And the peace that we are enjoying, I think, is very paramount. And it is in the interest of every citizen of this country to guard against the peace that we are enjoying today. Sena, you are seeking for political power for what? You want to serve and improve on the living conditions of the people of Ghana. If Ghana is in chaos and you get political power, how are you going to even put up your policies together, implement them, and achieve your intentions? So it is not in anybody's interest to antagonize state institutions, i.e. the Electoral Commission, to the extent that even people are envisaging that if what they are calling for they don't get, then there will be chaos in this country. May God forbid. That is not the way we want to go. And I think that we all have to think about it. So now, I think whatever we say here is on records. And if we listen to my brother this morning, he wants to bring how Jim Mensah, who is now the current chairperson of the Electoral Commission, used to conduct herself at the IEA, Institute of Economic Affairs. They are part of their mandate to engage political parties and so on and so forth. Then that stands to tell us that long before even she became the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, it means the party as a body, the National Democratic Party as a body, maybe has issues with her. And already, maybe now that she has gotten a new position, that they have interest, all of us have interest as the chairperson of the Electoral Commission. They have vowed never to cooperate and assist her to deliver. And so now you can see that in the actions of the National Democratic Congress. We are living in this country. Sometimes we can disagree, but we cooperate to get things done. So if you are prepared right from day one, you have taken an entrenched position not to participate or not to agree and cooperate with the Electoral Commission, it means that even you, what you may wish to get, you will not get, because the appropriate forums that will be avail for you to articulate your views and your demand, maybe you have already shut that door onto yourself, so you will not get the opportunity. So what he said, I listened to the General Secretary about a week ago, the same Pan-African studio, Good Morning Ghana, Africa, when he was interviewed by my good friend Kwame Osudanso. And he also stated Madame Mensah actions at IEA, even though some of us consider them as trivial, but those things has to be brought on board to be able to ground their case against the compilation of the voter register. But that is not the issue. The issue is somebody was here, he has now been given a new position of which you have interest. How are we going to work together to achieve the collectively what he was saying, that we don't need to disenfranchise anybody, but we also have to assist the Electoral Commission to succeed. That is most important. But Sena, okay, fine. So what about today if the EC decide not to compile a new voter register? So what will be the actions of Madam Jim Mensah in the eyes of the NDC? So it means because if you agree to do what you want, then the person is good. But if you want to do what is right for the people of Ghana, just like my good brother has mentioned, that will serve the interests of the people of this country, not only the NDC group or party in this country, then the person is bad. But so let's don't reduce the analysis and the discourse to personality. It's the commission. She happened to be the head of the commission. Maybe you may have your private issues with her. That is different. But allowed them to do what is right, giving them the mandate by the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. So now, I always use ourselves to serve as an example as NPP. We were in the same position like our friends are now. Some few years back, we never granted our wish. We never got what we wanted. But we were not reduced to what we are experiencing now. I hope you are getting my point. So, but we did cooperate with the Electoral Commission headed by Charlotte Osai. We never exempted from IPAC meetings. No, we took part in all the IPAC meetings, put our policies and divergent views before the Electoral Commission. Some were taken, some were not taken. We wanted a new voter register credible long before 2016 election. We never granted. Sena, this is not the first time. We went to court. Abu Ramadan Evans Nmako on the issue of the voter register. But eventually, we went into the 2016 election with the old register. But we never boycotted. We took part in the elections. So today I am surprised that the pilot program of the Electoral Commission, when I saw my good friends NDC seriously taking part in the exercise, so I laughed. I said, that is the politics. And I kept telling my friends that, look, don't underrate the National Democratic Congress. As at now, it seems they are fully against what the Electoral Commission is doing, but go behind the scenes. They are fully preparing to partake in the exercise. If the exercise start today, there won't be any police stations that you know see NDC agents and their people actively participating in the exercise. So that is the issue. So as for the politics side of it or the inconsistency aspect of it, I today listened to my good friend, but he brought in the issue of cost. You know, when the whole debate started, the issue that the NDC was hammering on and other civil society was on the cost of compiling a new voter register. But then we were not hit with COVID. But that was the issue. Then I kept asking myself, so, but we all know democracy is expensive. Today, look at the number of MPs we have in parliament. Look at ministers. Look at how much we spend, Ghana taxpayers' money. But that is the system we have chosen. So if we want to solidify it and give it more credence, then we shouldn't be talking about cost. Especially when we want to do away with post-elections, debate, confusions, maybe arguments, going to court and all those things. Let's do what the needful. And we can all have confidence and trust in the Electoral Commission and make sure that we have a credible voter register. So when that is done, I think we will be moving forward as a nation. So on that score, the issue of cost, in my view, and many others, was not a very effective reason to adduce by those group of people. And so when COVID came, now the narrative changed. We want the Electoral Commission want to endanger people's life. Why should they continue? We are in pandemic. Now people will not go. So now you see the issue, of course, is thrown is thrown somewhere. And now the argument is on call. And we all did agree that there's COVID. But there are protocols, there are ways. So we're under lockdown. The Electoral Commission had to stop whatever they were doing because people's life matter more. So now they had the opportunity. They said, let's proceed. But going by the protocols put in place, we can go ahead to have a register without endangering the life of the people of Ghana. So that now the more point the NDC is hammering on the conspicuously absent, the CI, that is the voter card, because the Electoral Commission is saying that passport and Ghana card is what will be required as identification cards to get into the new voter roll. Now that is the point. But Sena, I don't want to dwell much on this because for the past 1 month, that has been the topical issue that we have been discussing. I recall anytime we come here, we talk about the voter register or what the Electoral Commission has prepared and planned to do. And they are not backing down, but we are moving on. But I am happy Honorable Sena has indicated that now we all saw what the Supreme Court did, I think Thursday or so, directed the Electoral Commission to go by Monday. They should file their legal defense as to why we won't have they've excluded the voter ID card from the identification cards. And when that directive was given, you could see some smiles and happiness in the faces of my good friends in the NDC. And I am happy. I am happy because some of us kept telling them long that this issue, why don't you go to court and seek for redress? I don't want to mention names. A leading member said, this court that we have packed with these people. And I said, look at what is happening. But that today, look at what is happening. So I will be very happy that we will all accept the ruling of the court at the end of the day. People will not say it's A or B. So that is why I want us to be on record. That if A is good and it becomes B, the B too has to be good. Because those are the calls that we have. And we have trust them and rely on them. They are also human beings. They will look at the circumstances and the atmosphere and give a judgment that will help build the cohesion and reduce the tension with regards to the stand of the Electoral Commission. Sena, Another important point is people are talking. Senior members of this country are talking. So civil society groups are talking. Imams are talking. Pastors are talking. They are also human beings. Why do you still think that those who are in charge will want to cause trouble in this country? Also, now, why do you think that those in charge may to some extent want to favor one particular political party against the other? No, as for suspicion, it is there. You can't rule it away. See, now we did the same when we were in operation, when Charlotte Osei was there. But 2016 election proved us wrong. So now we knew we're doing best and we're campaigning seriously. But I would have been surprised if somebody comes to tell me we're going to win the election with that margin. I will tell you, no, we'll win especially when you go back to records from 1996 down, how the election results has always been. And what we saw in 2016, I will not believe it. But we had it. We won the elections. So I felt that we have made a lot of gains as people. We have always bastardized and go against the Electoral Commission, even when Afrajan was the Electoral Commissioner. When you are in operation, you seem not to see anything good that the Electoral Commission is doing. Until you win election and you come, then you appreciate that, oh, maybe they were being accused you people wrongly. But because we're in operation, we're frustrated and desperate, we wanted political power at all costs, we have to, seems to be blind and be condemning whatever actions that we are taking. But that is it. Not long before, we were told that we have to state our case and allow the Electoral Commission to do its work. Today, the narrative have changed. We also thought that because Charlotte Osei was appointed by the former president, who was the president of the Republic, John Dramani Mahama, we thought that it was a bidding. But we were proven wrong at the polls when the results were being compiled and declared we won the elections. So what was the beef? So I don't think that, and it is the constitutional rights of any president, when people are retired or there's a vacant, a special organization like an Electoral Commission to do appointment. It is not only limited to President Akufo-Addo. So we all have to, my brother, I agree on that score with you. We all have to guard against our young democracy that we are nursing. So now we are young, we are growing, but we had the opportunity to read history, where this country was, where we were, how we came through, and where we are now, and where we want to go. So it is incumbent on all of us, whether irrespective of our political parties, to be mindful of the fact that whatever we may wish to achieve, but the peace of this country is supreme. So when you listen to other people, they say, fine, there's still hope to go. But now that the issues are in court, and when issues are in court, you don't just comment on them like that, but we'll be waiting patiently how the verdict, and I know the EC will comply with the directive given by the Supreme Court. So at the end of the day, I think that all this brouhaha surrounding a new voter register will be put to rest, because at the end of the day, when the court give it verdict, I think maybe if some will not go for appeals and other things, I think that will bring finality to the matter. And I will hope and pray that after the verdict by the Supreme Court, none of the parties will want to say, oh, I will be going for appeal. And maybe if that happens, it will not send a good signal. And when there are litigations, I think that there's a limit to which some of the parties can do, especially the defense of the defense party. I don't know whether they can still proceed with their actions now that the issues are in court. That one has stand for correction, but let's hope and see. And I'm happy because some of us want this whole tension to stop, and then we move on. But at the end of the day, people should not also look at it as if we, from where we are coming from, communicators of the New Patriotic Party, ruling government, speaking on behalf of the Electoral Commission. Why? So now we said that we have been consistent, even in operation, but we said that based on what we have seen and what we have researched and discovered, there's a need for us to revisit the register and make it fair, make it more credible for subsequent election. That has been our position. So when this time around we are still on that position, and we are also stakeholders, and we have interest in whatever that is happening, because we are taking part in the 2020 elections, and we have formed government. We want to retain political power. So why should we sit unconcerned and seems not to be worried about what is happening? We have interest. So we need to also be part of what is going on and make sure that if the noise is too much for the referee, we have to also come in and say, no, we also have interest. So don't see our position as we are now defenders of the Electoral Commission. That is not the issue. The issue is that we also have interest. But what the interest is that it is grounded that we need sanctity. We need free, fair, transparent election. And that can be given when you have a credible voter register. And so now, for today, tomorrow to come, we are fully in support of a new voter register. Whether it is Jemensa, it is Bosmasare, it is Sena who is compiling a new register, we are for it because we want to guard the freedom and peace of this country.
Thank you. Thank you, Mujib Rahman. Well, if you just join us, you're watching the Mother World Talk Shows, Alhaji and Alhaji, live on Pan-African Television. We are live on Ahunto 92.3 FM. And you can also get us on Facebook, Pan-African Television, and also on several affiliates across the country. Let me just read a couple of messages. Stephen Kobnato is saying, where do you think the EC got the audacity from to exclude the voter ID from the CR? They got it from the NIA. The NIA was able to push itself through without accepting the voter ID card. They disregarded calls, including those of John Ajekum Kufuor, to add the voter ID card. They had their way. The EC just got motivated from here. What they forgot is that the voter ID cards are their own properties and not those of the National Identification Authority. Dr. David Percy says, Sena, our President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and the NPP see a new voters register as a never-to-be-missed opportunity to implement a final solution to the vexed ever-Voltarian problem. To the President and the NPP and the UP and the NLM mate, is it Matimi Home Criminal Gang, Nkrumah and Ghana took the wrong turn in 1956 when the Transvolta Togoland became part of the soon-to-be independent Gold Coast. The incorporation of areas of Transvolta Togoland into the Gold Coast, then Ghana made an automatic Akan electoral majority impossible. This is the time to exclude them and other non-core ethnic minorities from the Ghanaian citizenship. That way, the real owners of Ghana can take proper charge of their country and their affairs. Simple. That's from Dr. Percy. Hadi in Pig Farm says, I use my birth certificate to get a passport, but I cannot use my birth certificate to get a voter's ID card. Instead, I can use my passport to get a voter's ID card. I now know that not all educated people have Allah save Mother Ghana. Doctor, do you know that no political party in Ghana can be better than the NPP when it comes to self-praises? You say Eric and his party will send their own examples. They are okay. I am not sure this was even intended for me, because some of the hosts that they are mentioning is not me. Alhaji Hamza says, in my humble opinion, Madam Jean Mensa led EC are doing more harm than good to this country. Madam Jean Mensa led EC are nothing but dangers to the peace of this country, and they must be told. This is an EC who wants to conduct registration exercise and does not have a clear roadmap. We are told the registration exercise will start at the late end of June and end at the late July without any clear timelines. Given this does not make sense to me. That's from Alhaji Hamza and Pig Farm. Mr. Segbefia.
Thank you very much, Sena, and good morning to all my colleagues on the panel as well as the viewers who are watching. I will take one of the statements made by my colleague from the MPP when he says we should do what is right. And at the present moment, what is right is to ensure that you save the lives of Ghanaians. The biggest issue in Ghana at the moment is COVID-19. It's a pandemic. It's not restricted to only Ghana. We have closed our borders. We have shut down cities for a period. We've closed churches, hotels, name it. Practically, our country has come to a standstill. And so when you say what is right is that any step you take, you must take it as the government says it is doing to ensure that the lives of Ghanaians are paramount. Are the numbers of COVID going down? No. We passed the 9,000 mark already. Going up. Our mortality rate is also going up. So, you ask yourself, and this is not about MPP or NDC. This is about the ordinary Ghanaian. You ask yourself, on what basis are we going through an exercise that will enhance the possibility of spread when there's an alternative? It's simple. It's not MPP and DC. I haven't gotten there yet. This is simple, plain, common sense. Why would you put us through going to collect National Identification Authority cards, almost 3 million people? And it's not, you don't go to the office and say, I'm Kweku Watting, I'm Alexi Befia, then they give you your card. You go through the biometric process because they must be sure that you are the person that is coming to collect the card. So you have almost 3 million cards which we are told have to be picked up. You have potentially another 5 million people who now haven't got the card and now have the opportunity to go and register. When that is done, you're going to use 16 million people to queue to now go and get the new Electoral Commission card, the new voters ID card. And then at the end of that, we are all going to vote, 16 million of us again. Are we really clear in our mind what COVID-19 is? People open schools for a short period, their numbers went up, they've closed their schools in other countries. Anytime you take a step that brings people together, the numbers increase. So some things are inevitable. Some things you need to do. You need to begin to test the pulse. But when it is not necessary, don't do it. If you have a voter's ID card in existence, which the rate of error every time they do an election goes down, 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 so that we are almost getting to the point of perfection. Why do you now turn around and say you will not use it in a COVID period? Instead, you want to have a dogmatic posture and say, because I have said it and I don't want to look like I don't have power or for whatever reason, I will put all the lives of Ghanaians at risk and go and queue. I was surprised to hear the president say that the EC and the NIA were not part of the executive orders that were given. I did not gather that from what was said. But let me assume that it is true. Then I ask the question, if they were exempt, why was it necessary for the EC to call an IPAC meeting but divide it into two? They were exempt. Why didn't you just call a meeting, get a bigger hall, put everybody in it, and you decided to divide the meeting into two on the basis of COVID? Why? You were exempt. There was no reason why you couldn't do it. You could have run this pilot earlier because you were exempt. Why didn't you do it? Let me come to the issue of pilots. You know, when the Ghana national team or even clubs go to play football in another country or and they are going to play in a particular stadium, Do you know that they insist on being allowed to train on the ground where they are going to play? Where you are going to play the match. They say they need a training session on that pitch. Because that is the pilot. That is the last one, so that you get to feel everything that is supposed to happen except the spectators. You have a feel of it on that pitch. You don't go to a pitch and they give you a volleyball to train with, and then when you get to the game, they give you a new football. So the pilot, from the moment they said that they were not going to do, or they didn't use facial recognition, and they did not use the new machines, it is a zero pilot, excuse me to say. It doesn't count for the word pilot. There has been no pilot in Ghana. Let us be clear. Because the whole argument was that we need a new system because of facial recognition. We are bringing a system to add to what we already exist. This system is not even as foolproof as the one you have. It is in the 80 percentage percentile, whereas the fingerprint is 99 point something. So you want us to all go and queue for something that is not even as good as the fingerprint. We say fine. And when you are coming to do the pilot, you don't bring it. And when we are coming to do the pilot, you use an old machine so that when people put their card in it, it says no. It rejects them because the machine has already got them on it. What kind of a pilot is that? There has been no pilot in Ghana, let us be clear. Because you must bring all the machines, the new ones, everything. Let us go through it. Let us see the faults. Let us see the advantages, and let us know where we are. Then you prepare. What have we done? All these numbers and figures, they are zero. They don't count for anything at all, as far as I'm concerned, because they didn't use the new equipment. And the most crucial issue, which was facial recognition, which was the very first basis for us even saying that you wanted a new, is not part of it. So what is this? And that is now coming to the technical issues. But how about COVID? You want all of us to start going. Do you know the saddest part of it is that people will not go. Because even schools that have been opened, some parents are saying that I will not send my child to school. You are going to open for people to vote. People are going to say that to register. I won't go and register. Let the old card go. The new card, I'll get it another time. So even by choice, people will disenfranchise themselves. I went, even when there was no COVID, to get NIA card. The queue, as I'm sitting here, I don't have it. Because I was not prepared to use any backdoor means to go and say that I want to be part of this. I wanted to join the queue, and I couldn't. It was too long. There were not enough stations, etc., etc. And all of a sudden, we are rushing to register 5 million extra people before we get to the one that is going to be for the Electoral Commission card with COVID. Why are we doing this to ourselves? Why? For me, I can't understand it. It's a simple issue. And the longer you leave it, by the time you want to go back to the old machines and say that, okay, we are going to look at them and sort them out, you would have now lost time. Something that would have cost you 1 million, the person who is going to do it to say, I need 3. And you're now in a fix, so you have to find the 3 million. Are you understanding how these things work? Do it early. Make the decision early. Whatever the reasons why we said we don't want to do it, it's not expensive. COVID has come. Because of COVID, your April line, you couldn't meet it. And we are now in July, end of June to start it. Why? EC, why? I cannot understand it. Because it is going to put Ghanaians' lives at risk. And I'm not talking now in terms of the technical things. If you notice, I'm looking at it from a health position. We are not even aware. We are going to have a session on COVID. So I'm just putting in perspective of the EC. Then the issue of what happened in Parliament yesterday. Under the MPP government, conventions are just thrown outside the window without any You can't understand what is going on. The first 2 CIs plus the third one, this is Suhini. He should explain to us how they were laid in Parliament. CIs, normally there's a process by convention. It goes through a certain process before even to get to the speaker for it to lay. You'll be there, no, they say Chairman Sabonso has laid it, put it, given the speaker is there. Nobody has seen it. And that's why it was thrown out for 2 times. And then the third one even is under argument. Because they run away from the conventions. The convention is that even in CIs, because you can never change it, you do what is called pre-laying. You give it to everybody, all the committees discuss, blah, 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 blah. And then when it gets there, you don't have the arguments that we are having now. All that discarded by MPP. MPP won't follow convention. The bad habits they have picked up or they are performing, EC has picked up those bad habits. IPAC is a body that looks at various things. Before they get it even to the Parliament, they have already decided between the political parties and what is required, what has to be done. Then it is sent there. So by the time they also get to look at it, it has been dealt with. Where are we seeing? Even for minutes of meetings, you go for a meeting, somebody mentions one line on something, and then you go and say in your report, there has been a full discussion on the issue. The credibility of the Electoral Commission has become suspect. By their own, I can cite examples, numerous. They have affected their own credibility, nobody else. You tell people that, look, this is the program. You go and do a whole presentation. That presentation, you say that we are going to use voter ID cards, the old ones. When the CI comes, it's not there. Why? And when we in opposition open, you say, oh, opposition, he has made an admission today that they had no business even fighting Charlotte Osei because they won the election. And so they realized they didn't have a basis. And he's trying to say that based on that, we have no basis. I'm telling him today that we have a basis and we'll stand by a basis. Win or lose the election, what is going on is wrong. Win or lose the election, what is going on is wrong. It cannot be right. We are not putting this forward as a whimsical thing. And even with COVID, which has got nothing to do with our initial arguments, they are wrong. They will never be right today, yesterday, or tomorrow. You don't do this under COVID. It's not right. And when people make the accusation that all this is about elections and their primaries and whatnot, you have a lifting of restrictions on churches and schools. The conditions are such that many of the churches are saying that this one, we'll wait till it's lifted a little bit further, but we can't. It doesn't make sense to us. The mosque, they are not saying the big ones, no. From Chief Imam. Yet tell me one restriction or one issue that has been given to the NIA or the Electoral Commission as to what actions they should take to ensure. Oh, they can do it themselves. So the churches and the mosque and they don't have sense. They don't have sense. They don't know how to organize their affairs. But EC and NIA, they have all the sense in the world. They will do it on their own, and everybody else must follow the instruction of government. When somebody then says, oh, you have done this because of this particular purpose, you accuse the person. But why? Look at the detailed instructions that came from the Minister of Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs. Look at the detailed instructions that came from the Minister of Education. Look at the detailed instructions that came from the Minister of Sports. Nobody has said anything about EC. You say, oh, they are independent body. So we can. What is the point of the executive instruments? You have powers in the executive instrument that you should not even have. Somebody says an insult or you think something is an insult, you can go and get the person brought up, blah, blah, blah. So you have powers to, this is The reason why it's an executive instrument on that this thing going through Parliament is because it is not normal times. And you are trying to do all these things. These restrictions are because the government is fully aware that COVID is dangerous, is highly infectious, and therefore, if you don't have a certain amount of control, you will have a problem in your country. Therefore, they have made it imperative that we are going to restrict people. Yet, you will not restrict the people whose congregation is actually bigger than any church or mosque. 60 million people have to vote, to register, before they can vote. If you deal with the old register, you have only one issue to deal with, which is limited registration. Limited registration, by our calculations from the statistical services, is 600,000 people. So there is no basis why that cannot be done. There's risk, but it's less. And then we all have to concentrate to get good protocols for us to go and vote on the 7th of December with the 60 million people. All these 3 million people that have to go and print their cards, 5 million people that have to go and register again, 60 million people that have to go and do the all those risk positions will be excluded, and we won't have a problem. So, my brother, these are the issues that I haven't gone to cost. I haven't gone on anything with the legal side, because even those who would have hoped. I'm a lawyer. We don't talk on things that are in court. So, I will not comment on it. So, we'll wait for the issues. Except to correct my friend that 2 things. 1, it was under the Kufuor administration that the Supreme Court made a decision of 4-3. Kufuor's government went and packed the Supreme Court with 2 extra people and then reviewed the Supreme Court decision, and we got 5-4. So if he wants to advise people on whether they can appeal or not, he should go and advise his political party, not us.
But Honorable, the Supreme Court can always review their own decisions.
But there's that
was really long. Whether the judge
I want
to or not, but that power is in them. They can review their own decision.
Thank you, listen. Yeah.
The review process is an appeal process. You said that you would hope that we don't appeal, or there's no appeal, because it won't look good. It has already not looked good under your administration. That's the point I'm making. It's not us. So, and we haven't even got there. So, yes, there has to be, because you people don't even follow convention. You don't follow convention. I'll give you an example.
Precedence of the law.
What precedence? The precedence is that when you go into Parliament, you look at what has happened. You are a ranking member on a committee. Your chairman, by convention, not by law, he could have just taken it and said late without letting, and that's what the MPP would have shown they would have done. Because of the way they laid the CI, they would never have shown it to anybody. He would have just taken his report and sent it. Dominani didn't do that. He gave it to you. You make amendments to it, changing the whole narrative, and then you go. It's not even your duty to lay it all. It's not your duty. What kind of arrogance is that? You take it and go and lay it. And when the people are complaining, if it was because of the noise made in Parliament, they will debate that document. And fortunately, the noise was so distant because it had run contrary to all the conventions. It would have led possibility into a walkout. Because you cannot prepare your own. Somebody has prepared this document. I've just let you see it, and you go and change the whole document and say it's our document. How? So please, when we are talking, we are doing it on facts. We are not doing it hanging. There's precedence and there's examples. Timely, and I'm saying that every convention, and that disease has caught the EC2, the way they are treating IPAC. That is the issue. And it is written to the point where they want to make a law. When you are eating rice, take fork. When you are eating this thing, fufu, use your hands. If you don't write it in law, then the convention. Why? Everything now has to be written in law. That is why conventions are. That's why IPAC was created. IPAC is not a creature that is done under law. It is done under convention. But it has served us well. And the second correction I want to make before I land is that it is also not correct that when they were in opposition, they just took things. Do you know how in 2012 biometric came? The Dankwa Institute were the ones who intimated that we should have biometric. The MPP took it up, fought us, and said that we needed biometric. It went to IPAC. And after they had looked at it, everybody, we in government, they in opposition, agreed that, okay, let's have biometric. So they shouldn't say that, oh, when things don't go their, things are sent, it doesn't go their way. Many of the opaque ballot boxes to transparent, this thing, were instituted by the MPP in opposition, and we who were in government didn't have our way. The EC then will say, no, what they are saying is right. Even when it came to the ballot boxes at the time, and I'm sure Kwesi had to confirm that, we didn't even have the money. And one of the foreign donors donated money for us to get transparent ballot boxes. This was a distant initiative when they were negotiating, they brought about, I think in '96. So that statement that when they are in opposition, things don't happen for them, it's not true. It's not true. They have been the major instigators of change. And the irony of it is that we who are in opposition, who should be seeking change, I tell you that this change, we don't need, it's not necessary. You've won an election with it. So you're just praising yourself now, but you are running away from it. On that note, I say thank you.
Thank you very much. Farik in Tamale North says, we will not allow the EC and the MPP to use Ghanaians for their parochial interests. The voter's ID card is a primary document to identify a Ghanaian, and why is the EC insisting on rejecting it? The rigging tactics is clear now. Hashtag kick Nana out here ends. And Tafai Namra here says people used their... Okay, he sent it a couple of... Okay, it's the same thing. People use their birth certificate to register for the Ghana card and also use the same certificate to acquire passport. And now the AC is telling us that the certificate that gives birth to both the passport and Ghana card cannot be used to register. This doesn't make sense at all. With regards to the Tema interchange, if any MPP member tries to claim that project, then he or she will be making a mockery of themselves. The same way any NDC member who tries to claim the Adenta Medina Road will also be making a mockery of himself, even though the Adenta Medina Road was completed during the NDC tenure. Let me end with Komla Ganya, who says, good morning, brother. I am not optimistic about fairness of the... Okay. It's an interesting one. Mr. Pratt.
Well, I think first and foremost, it is absolutely important to state that the Electoral Commission has no mandate, constitutional or otherwise, to compile a new voters register. Indeed, that matter is a matter which is being determined by the Supreme Court. And I've said this many times. If you look at Article 45, subsection 1 of the 1992 Constitution, it is absolutely clear what the Electoral Commission is mandated to do is to compile the voters register, which shall be reviewed from time to time. That is the constitutional mandate of the Electoral Commission. And the argument that they have a mandate to compile new voters register anytime they wish or please, I think is problematic. You understand? It's clearly problematic. We are all anxiously waiting for the Supreme Court to make a determination of that matter, and we'll be guided by it. And when I say this, I do not mean that the Supreme Court is God or can be God. When I say this, what I simply mean is that legal litigation ought to end somewhere. And we as a people have decided that the Supreme Court is the final arbiter in these matters. And therefore, whatever decision the Supreme Court makes, even if we disagree with the Supreme Court, we will abide by it. But when I have read the Constitution, I've come to the firm conclusion that the Electoral Commission has no such mandate. Again, I think it is important to stress that the Electoral Commission's credibility is in tatters, and nobody can convince me and convince any right-thinking independent observer that the Electoral Commission has any credibility. Why do I say this? You have an Electoral Commission, the chairperson of which decides to go and party with women who are appointed by the president and therefore owe allegiance to the president. That's a huge dent on the credibility of the Electoral Commission. But that is not all. You have an Electoral Commission, a member of whom decides to make a public pronouncement to the effect that one of the possible contestants in the 2020 elections is a danger to the effort to nurture democracy in Ghana. What else do you need to establish bias? My brother, what else do you need to establish bias? You have an Electoral Commission, a member of which, when we were preparing from the referendum on district level elections and so on, publicly urged the people of Ghana to vote yes. Publicly urged the people of Ghana to vote yes. How can a commission which has responsibility for supervising elections retain any credibility after one of its members displays this level of partisanship? And nothing happens to him. He's still sitting on the commission and so on. So these are real problems that the Electoral Commission has to face. No matter how the Supreme Court decides the matter before it and so on, the credibility of the Electoral Commission is in tatters. And I don't know how they're going to deal with this question of credibility. You understand? Now, there's another issue which I think it's most important. 8 months ago, the same Electoral Commission told us that the existing voters register is credible. 8 months ago. In 8 months, what has changed? When we were preparing for the national referendum, go and check the statements that the commissioners made. They told us there was nothing wrong with the register, that the register was credible. So in 8 months, what has changed to make this register, this same register that we were talking about, inappropriate for national elections? Sometimes it seems to me that some of our public officials speak both sides of their mouth. And that's a huge problem. Now we are told that the Electoral Commission has conducted a pilot for the compilation of a new voters register. That action is clearly illegal. Under what law? The constitutional instrument, which is to guide the Electoral Commission in the conduct of the 2020 elections and all issues related to that, is still lying in Parliament, has not been approved, has not reached maturity, and so on. So under what law is the Electoral Commission conducting a pilot? Under what law? Indeed, the very exercise they are conducting now is before the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is determining whether or not they have a constitutional mandate to compile a new register. And even before the Supreme Court has come to a determination, they have started implementing the project. Now, if this is not contempt, I don't know what can pass for contempt. And yet we're all sitting down and watching them completely misbehaving, completely undermining our effort to build and nurture a democracy in Ghana. And I'm scandalized, completely scandalized. You know, recently, I listened to the chairman of the MPP's campaign team. And my job, I was so glad that he spoke. The first point he makes is that the MPP is independent of the Electoral Commission. That the MPP does not speak for the Electoral Commission. That the MPP is coming to the table with its own views and so on, like any other political party. But most importantly, Mr. Peter McMenu, chairman of the MPP's campaign, says that with or without a new register, mark his words, with or without a new register, the NPP will win the 2020 elections fairly. And that the elections can be fair, transparent, and the other word. What is the other word?
Yeah.
Free.
Yeah.
So, if the NPP can win free, transparent, and fair elections with the old register, why are we wasting our time? And I'm not the one saying it. The MPP is saying that it is possible to conduct free, fair, and transparent elections with the old register. So why are we beating ourselves? Why are we making all this noise and so on? I can't understand. Sena, when the Electoral Commission decided that it was going to compile a new register, no matter what anybody said and so on, they told us that the exercise would start on April 18th. Okay? April 18th. And they insisted that if they started on April 18th, they would end the exercise in November. By November, we'll have a new register. That was their calculation, not my calculation. Now, the exercise did not start on April 18th. The exercise is supposed to start at a date we don't know. All we know that it will be in the last week of June. Okay? So if you start the exercise on 18th of April, you will give us a new register in November. If you start it in the last week of June, when are you going to give us a new register for us to hold elections on 7 December 2020? When? I mean, what my brother, what is happening? Why? Why are we being treated like zombies? Like people with gravel in our heads and so on. The Electoral Commission needs to show us a little respect. Just a little respect. Look, we have appointed commissioners to superintend over the affairs of the Electoral Commission only because all the 30 million Ghanaians cannot do that job. We cannot 30 million Ghanaians become electoral commissioners. So we have selected some Ghanaians, some of us, to go and do that job for us. They are working for us. They are not working for themselves. And if they're working for us, then it is important for them to understand that they must do what the people of Ghana want. I spent some time looking at the various polls that have been organized, Ghana Web, My Joy Online, and so on. All the polls which have been organized, my brother, in all of the polls, one of them had more than 80% of the Ghanaian population opposed to the compilation of a new register. Another one had more than 70% of Ghanaians opposed to the new register. Shouldn't we learn from this? Shouldn't this give us a signal? In any case, who told the political parties? Who told any of the political parties? Who told them that they can pretend to be speaking for all of us? If you put their membership, true membership together, I am sure that it is not up to 1/3 of the population of Ghana. Not up to 1/3 of the population of Ghana. So to pretend that there are two dominant parties which must do as they please and do things and so on is problematic. The vast majority of the Ghanaian people are not members of political parties. They may be sympathizers of political parties, but they are not members of political parties. And that is why I think that in all of these things, it is important for us to listen very carefully to the voice of the people. And the voice of the people is expressed in so many ways. It was only last week that I discovered that the Electoral Commission actually flatly refused to meet with the National House of Chiefs to discuss these matters. Now, I'm not a fan of the chieftaincy institution. I am not a fan of the chieftaincy institution. But if you read our laws, read our constitution, and come face to face with our tradition and so on, it does play a certain role. And what is the basis for the Electoral Commission refusing to brief the National House of Chiefs on elections in Ghana? What is the basis? Sheer arrogance? Or what? Maybe this idea that the Electoral Commission has unfettered independence is what is creeping into their head and coloring their vision and so on. But Sena, there is no constitutional body in Ghana or public service institution in Ghana which has unfettered independence. It doesn't exist. It cannot even exist in our wildest imaginations. Why? The president, His Excellency, whoever he may be at any time, cannot have unfettered independence and cannot do as he pleases. We have a constitution which is founded on the principle of separation of powers. That is why you have a parliament which can reject some of the proposals of the president. That is why you have a judiciary which can disagree with the president and tell him, no, you can't do what you are doing. That is why, if you look at the 1992 Constitution, we can sack a president. We can sack a president. 3 days after being in office, the same day he goes into office, we can start processes from throwing him out of office. That is why we have a right of impeachment. All of that should teach us that the president cannot do as he pleases. Now, if the appointing authority of the commissioners, the authority that appoints the commissioners does not have unfettered independence, how does the commission have unfettered independence? In this dispensation, not this dispensation, under this government, we have sacked electoral commissioners using dubious judicial processes and so on. We've sacked electoral commissioners. And I mean, when I say dubious judicial processes, I mean what I'm saying. The first petition against Madam Charlotte Osei was signed by persons, including one who had died before the petition was uttered. Is that not dubious? And yet we managed to sack them. So where is that independence which is unfettered? Today, there's a matter before the Supreme Court for determination. If the Supreme Court decides that the Electoral Commission does not have a mandate to compile a new register and so on, that matter is ended. That will demonstrate very clearly that the Electoral Commission does not have unfettered independence. You understand? Clear that the Commission does not have unfettered independence. So what is all this noise about the independence of the Commission and so on? And you know, I get sick when I hear some of the political communicators making noises. Throughout this week, I've heard political communicators saying that the president must not and cannot exercise his legal authority, and that the appointment of the chairperson of the Electoral Commission ought to be done on the basis of consensus. Didn't they say that? Didn't they say that? What are they saying today? Are they being consistent? Today, they have become the chief advocates of the independence of the Electoral Commission because it suits them. I mean, what is this? Master, for me, the thing that is most shocking is the fact that the people today who have power, who exercise power on our behalf, in whom we have temporarily reposed our sovereignty and so on, are looking us in the face and saying that no, our mandate is not correct, our mandate is shaky. They are the people telling us that they were elected on the basis of a faulty voter register. They are the people telling us that look, the voter register which brought us into power is a problem. And that if you don't change this voters register, the elections will not be credible. So they were elected into power with a faulty register. Their election had no credibility. What are they doing in power today? Based on their own arguments, what are they doing in power today? They are the people making that argument. And yet, they are clinging on to the power which they won on the basis of a faulty register. They are still clinging on to power when they say that the elections that brought them to power was not credible. Do they understand what they are doing? Do they understand the full implications of their posture and so on? I doubt. Master, you know something? What happened in Parliament yesterday? It's embarrassing. And to say that is embarrassing is to say the least. That a report from a committee of Parliament going to before the full House for discussion and approval and so on is alleged to have been doctored. Doctored. Forged. Doctored means forged. And Parliament could not even resolve the matter. Parliament had to adjourn sitting for the matter to be considered at a later date. Now, if you're a Ghanaian, you must be very deeply embarrassed. I feel deeply embarrassed. You understand? Now, yesterday, something else happened which was embarrassing as far as I was concerned, very, very embarrassing to me as a Ghanaian. You know, the former president, Mr. Jerry John Rawlings, gave a lecture of some sort, you know, about the June 4th uprising and 31st December processes and so on. And he said many things. He said, for example, that we should assist the Electoral Commission to do its work. He said that. He made claims that the Electoral Commission was independent. He did that. So, first of all, it is strange that he can make these statements in contravention of his party's position. He, as founder of the party, what role does he play in the decision-making processes of the party? The fact that he comes out and speaks against the positions of his party is a clear indication that he is no founder of that party. and has no role in the decision-making processes. If he has a role in the decision-making process of the party, and he goes out to subvert those decisions later, it speaks to his loyalty to the party and so on. But he said other things. In that same lecture, he also made the point that the Electoral Commission ought to make sure that no Ghanaian is disenfranchised. Is that how they say it? Yeah. Disenfranchised. He made that point. He made the point that it would be abominable if the Electoral Commission took steps to disenfranchise some Ghanaians and so on. But Mujib, your people decide to run with only one side of his speech. It was all about supporting the Electoral Commission and the independence of the Electoral Commission. Forgetting that in the same speech, he made the point that no Ghanaian should be disenfranchised. Now, if you look at what is happening, Master, it is clear, so very clear, that at the end of the day, millions of Ghanaians are going to be disenfranchised. So very clear. First of all, this crazy idea, very absolutely crazy idea of throwing away the birth certificate is so crazy, I don't know where it's coming from. Now listen, if you're going to vote in an election, there are two most important criteria. Some say 3, I say 2. The two most important criteria are that 1, you are Ghanaian. That's an important criteria. That 2, you are 18 years and above. Which document can attest to your age and nationality better than a birth certificate? And yet, somehow, we become so crazy enough that we say, throw the birth certificate away. Let us use a passport, or let us use the national ID card. Meanwhile, you obtain your passport and national ID card on the presentation of a birth certificate. That's how smart we have become. We have become so smart that we are dribbling ourselves in circles and so on. You understand? Now, I like to go back to my good friend ABA Fuseni when I'm discussing these matters. Because he manages to put things in a certain perspective which makes things very, very clear. On this very platform, Alhaji ABA Fuseni says he went to his constituency and he visited a village. And in that village, nobody has a passport, nobody has a national identity card, the chief inclusive. So he has a conversation with the chief, and the chief says, so, on the day of the registration, Electoral Commission officials are going to come to my village and tell me that I don't come from this village. Because it is his being a citizen of that village which makes him a citizen of Ghana. So Electoral Commission officials are going to go to his village and tell him that he, the chief, he is not a Ghanaian. He doesn't come from that village. Indeed, he's not qualified to be a chief. What would happen? The chief simply said, well, let them come and leave my village in peace. That's a loaded statement, isn't it? Heavily loaded statement. You know, sometimes I get a feeling, not just a feeling, it's a very strong suspicion that we have come to the point in this country where we have appointed electoral commissioners who don't know how we conduct elections in Ghana. They have no idea. They've never seen elections being contested before. They have no idea about elections. And they are sitting there as electoral commissioners and telling us what to do and what not to do. It was this electoral commission which came up and said because of COVID-19 and whatever, the compilation of the new voters register, we are going to make sure that at the point of registration, there will not be more than 25 people at a time. And when I heard that, I said, my goodness, these people have never seen an election before. Because if they've seen an election before, they won't talk such. It's okay. I don't have to mention the word. But they won't talk such. You know what I mean? Because in this country, there are more than 20 parties. Go and check. They have the records. They should know. So if you're doing a registration exercise in which political parties are entitled to have observers, that alone gives us 20 people. How many electoral commission officials will be engaged in the registration exercise? Let's give them 5. So political party representatives and electoral commission officials, the place is full already. Full already. You haven't added security personnel. You haven't added international observers or local observers. You haven't added nothing. The place is full already. So how can the registration take place when the place is full already? So clearly, the people sitting at the Electoral Commission, they don't know how we conduct elections here. They don't even know the number of political parties. Incredible. And then, you know the other thing that shocked me? We have been talking about this iPad meeting which was messed up and so on. And they are livid. The electoral commissioners are livid with anger. Their supporters, they are so livid with anger. Why did the NDC boycott it and so on? I'm not going to go into that argument. For me, the organization of that meeting displayed in full public glare the level of incompetence and inefficiency of the Electoral Commission. The letter of invitation was a 1-page letter of invitation, not 25 pages, 1 page. The whole Electoral Commission with its commissioners and co-minini, they couldn't proofread 1 page. Go and see the mistakes on that page. Grammatical errors, factual errors, and so on. 1 page. The date was wrong. The time was wrong. If I say the date was wrong, that's even an understatement. The letter was dated 2010. So, with this level of inefficiency and incompetence, how do I have confidence that they can deliver anything good on December 7th, 2020? Look at the level of incompetence. Look at the level of inefficiency. And you tell me to have confidence in this Electoral Commission? My Jove! I'm having difficulties pronouncing. What is this? What is this? Look at the level of incompetence and so on. You know, our last topic has to do with freedom of expression. And I'm waiting patiently to get there. Let nobody think that anybody in Ghana can be stopped from expressing themselves, even if their views are wrong. This is what we fought for. People died to get us to this stage. People suffered imprisonment to get us to this stage. People made substantial sacrifices to get us to this stage. And those of us who took part in that struggle, we would not allow anybody, especially those who at the time refused to participate in those struggles, to come and destroy the gains of the Ghanaian people, you know, in building a democratic model. We would not allow them. Today, we are being told that we cannot describe the obvious. Anybody looking at this situation this situation of extreme recklessness, extreme inefficiency, this situation of deliberate subversion of laws and so on, can't predict. That it can only take us to chaos, full chaos. And then when you say that, they say they don't understand. Let them go to wherever they want to go.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pratt.
Just two quick ones, if you allow me. You know,
as usual, you know the format.
Yeah. Okay.
So you can start the next line.
So
no, but before that, I'd have to take a break just to say that the National Identification Authority will be issuing. They say they will be issuing 3,875,441 printed cards to Ghana card applicants at 5,635 registration centers nationwide from Monday, June 8, 2020 to Tuesday, June 16, 2020. A lot of cards to issue.
There's one important point that I didn't make, but I'll make it in the next time.
Okay.
Next
So we'll take a short break. You are watching Alhaji and Alhaji on Pan-African television. We'll be right back.
He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer and the champion of liberty, of human equality. Let's salute him, fellow Ghanaians, the nation's founder, Sajifo Kwame Nkrumah. May God bless him, Ghana showboy, Africa's great son, Sajifo Dr. Nkrumah.
Welcome back from that break. If you're just tuning in, you're watching the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji. If you're just tuning in, you've missed a lot. We just had a discussion on the voters register. I know there will be some residual issues for some of the panelists to take care of. But let me just read a couple of messages. Then we'll go to our next topic. On the next topic, actually, I was going to start with Mr. Segbefia. But Lasan Sweeney says he has some issues to deal with. So I'll start with you instead. No but so could you talk about what you're saying? Sena, we use the same flawed register filled with non-Ghanaians to further divide this country into 16 regions. If a register was so unreliable, should we constitute the regions back to 10? Well, Kizito in Tema is saying, Uncle Kwesiprat, you've shown you are a good citizen and not a bad spectator. You were on JDM's neck when certain things weren't right. And you are doing same today. And what some people can tag you with is NDC. Nanado has shown that he can't rule this country fairly by his actions and behavior. He has failed and want to resort to EC bosses to be retained. There are several scandals and failed promises. An appointment of family and friends into office are haunting him. JDM is coming back to rescue Ghana from this incompetent, inconsistent, vindictive, wicked, and abysmal performing Nanado and his MPP government. That's from Kizito. Thank you very much for that message. Christina Shalibosho says the erroneous argument by the MPP communicators that the EC is trying to do the right thing and others are against it is total gibberish. Do they listen to the utterances of Bossman Asari, Seribo, and Jean Mensah herself? Jean Mensah is trying to manage the EC like her own restaurant by lording over us her own menu. The leadership of the EC is a walking contradiction. As for the government, we need drones to send them some common sense. Thank you, Chris, for that message. Koblave in Pokwasi Bengazi says, those saying Ghanaians should sympathize with President Kufuor because of coronavirus are MPP supporters who have gotten their share in the COVID-19 fund. We are not convinced that much has been done to support Ghanaians in this coronavirus fight. And then let me end with Ambassador Sampiale, who says, for me, my greatest problem is why did I register for a Ghana identity card but issued with an ECOWAS card? Thank you for those messages. So we're moving on to the easing of restrictions on COVID-19 and the issues that have arisen since then. Very interesting, especially on the religious front. And I'll start with Honorable Suhini once again, but you have 10 minutes.
Wow. Let's see what I can do with it. First of all, I just want to put it beyond doubt that I agree entirely with Mr. Kwesi Pratt Jr. On the constitutional mandate of the Electoral Commission. That is why in my earlier submission, what I highlighted was the mandate to review. It is their mandate to review. But I believe that as for the compilation of a register, I am also hoping, like I indicated earlier, that the Supreme Court will rule in favor of the majority of Ghanaians. But I just want to tell my good friend and brother, Mujib, that my expression of happiness about what the Supreme Court did this week, and my hope that they will, rule in the greater interest of Ghanaians, does not preclude me from expressing disappointment if they do otherwise. It doesn't. You have to get that straight. The fact that I'm happy with what, was the directive that they gave in court this week, and the fact that I am hoping that they will rule in the greater interest of Ghanaians does not preclude me in any way from showing disappointment or opposition if they do otherwise. You have to get that straight. Now, there is a certain propaganda that the Electoral Commission is doing, what is in the interest of Ghanaians. And when the NPP engages in this propaganda, they do what Mr. Kwesi Pratt highlighted a while ago, using the Rawlings' speech, where Mr. Rawlings, our founder, talked about the protection of state institutions and their mandate to carry out their jobs, but also the responsibility of those institutions in the specific case of EC to ensure that they do not disenfranchise Ghanaians. They leave that out. And then you see them highlighting the other part of protecting the EC. They have done that with President Kufuor's speech on this matter, where President Kufuor says there must be, the voter ID card must be included. They leave that out and only say President Kufuor wants a new register. Yes, he does. But he says the voter ID card must be included. Then the House of Chiefs decried the tension and the speeches that may be fueling it. Then they harp on that and leave the fact that the House of Chiefs also says that the EC must not behave as if power is expressed in a vacuum, and that they do not have unbridled power. They leave that part because it is propaganda. It is not speaking to the facts. It is not giving Ghanaians the whole picture to decide. It is choosing what they want them to see and believe. And that's propaganda. Let Ghanaians hear everything. The man says protect EC, but he also says EC don't disenfranchise people. The people are not stupid. They will decide. No. They will say no. He didn't say don't disenfranchise Ghanaians. He says support EC. That's propaganda. President Kufuor says I want a new register, but add the voter ID card. They don't add that one. They leave, President Kufuor wants voter ID card. Don't think the people are stupid. Let them hear have the full picture to decide. No, but that's what you do. Your media houses, we know the media houses that are affiliated to you. And and then when they do the reports and you sit in the studio like you sat here, you do it. So you say, no, I never did that on Radio Gold. I reported the news as fairly and as objectively as I could. I did that. And so what I'm saying is that let us beware of that, propaganda in the system and see how we can, guard against it. And Mr. Pratt also spoke about something in relation to the credibility of the EC chair. And I just want to reiterate it and perhaps, you know, emphasize why I even have a bigger problem with it. It's not just about Madam Jane Mensah attending a party that was organized by female appointees. No. It's that she was invited to a party of women appointees. I hope you get the difference. Someone can have his party and invite you. But the party was to celebrate, the party was for women appointees and to celebrate women appointees of the president. And incidentally, she is also appointed by Nanado. So if I were in her shoes, I would have exercised a lot of caution attending that party. Because this was a party to celebrate women appointees of the president. But she is not just an appointee of the president. She is supposed, after that appointment, to present herself as, you know, the referee, a constitutional appointee. Let me put it that way. She goes beyond a presidential appointee now. She's a constitutional appointee. But for her to have participated in this without any qualms, where Nanado's ministers and CEOs were happy and feeding fat, you know,
Demonstrating gratitude.
Exactly, demonstrating gratitude to the president. Subsequent events, if they are interpreted to mean that same gratitude being shown, you can't fault the people who interpret it in that manner. Sena, I wish I could go on to address some other issues, but because you have given me limited time, I just have to move on to COVID. I wanted to talk about the intolerance, you know, the intolerance of the New Patriotic Party. Do you know that in the history of the Fourth Republic, somehow, no electoral reform has ever taken place when they are in government? We do, like we are doing now. You never. No, they don't. They never agree. But the NDC has been magnanimous enough to accept issues that they have raised from opposition. But they think that when they are in government, everybody else can go stew in their pig-headedness. Forgive me. They have all the knowledge in the world. They never listen to anybody. And so, even though the House of Chiefs are speaking, the over 18 civil society organizations are speaking, lecturers are speaking one voice, they still don't consider that the voice of Ghanaians. Their voice is the voice of Ghanaians. Only MPP voice is the voice of Ghanaians. Now on COVID, Sena, I feel very sad that it seems to me that officialdom, and by officialdom I mean the president and his appointees, and people who are supposed to lead in this fight against COVID, are beginning to push down a mindset or an agenda that suggests that all is well, life is back to normal. So you hear them, for example, say, this disease is here to stay, this virus is here to stay, and so we have to learn how to live with it. And so they ease more restrictions, but clearly not for life in general to come to get normal, but for some electoral or political, you know, ends to be met. Why, Sena? I am, as a citizen, at a loss as to why we will go on a lockdown because of the virus at a time that we have just about less than 10 cases. Lift the lockdown when we have cases in double to triple digits. endure restrictions, have Ghanaians make a lot of sacrifices, businesses worse hit, and then have our tax money, good tax money, thrown at this problem. And yet, today, the numbers are in quadruple digits. Infection rate is high. General observation of protocols are still poor. And yet, leadership is not minded to sit back and find out what we may be doing wrong, despite the amount of money that we have thrown at this problem, despite the sacrifices people have made, but is willing to eagerly, push down our throat to accept the situation as it is, a failure, and so let's move on. As a citizen, I'm wondering why we don't care. I mean, if for nothing at all, I've made sacrifices as a person, and my sacrifices were intended to ensure that we have the disease under control. If for nothing at all, after all the money that the government has thrown at it, I'm expecting that if the numbers are not reducing, if the infection rate is not reducing, but at least general observation of the protocols must be high, then I'll feel that, okay, we have made some progress. That is not happening. And yet, you have a president easing the restrictions because he wants the National Identification Authority to carry out their exercise that complements the fraudulent compilation of a needless register by the Electoral Commission.
Unfortunately, your time is up.
Wow.
And
wow. Let me just wrap up on the issue of good money. That is why, as minority, we are saying that if we have not achieved anything at all with the lockdown and then the enduring and the fact that we have endured restrictions and made sacrifices, if we have not achieved anything at all, at least we must be assured that our money was put to good use as citizens. That's why we are calling on the Auditor General to carry out a special audit, that we can't lose it all, Sena. We can't. We cannot, as a people, not have anything to show after all these months. The numbers are not better. 8,500 plus. The infection rate is high. The general observation of protocols, poor. But so much money down the drain. So if we cannot get rewarded for the sacrifices that we all have made, at least the money that we gave to the government to take care of this should be accounted for, so that we assure ourselves that it went into the right places. The 40 million Ghana cedis that was meant to feed people in the lockdown areas, the 40.3 million that was meant to provide foodstuffs and grains to the affected people in the lockdown areas, and the 200 million for water and sanitation in the lockdown areas, let's at least know. And let nobody tell you that it's an ongoing thing. These are done and dusted. Okay. Because we are no longer in a lockdown. And those monies were approved for lockdown purposes. So let us be informed.
Okay. Thank you. Shangava says, and I am always surprised to hear the communicators of the MPP condemning the NDC for challenging the EC, forgetting that they did worse things to Mrs. Charlotte Osei when in opposition. If they said they cooperated with her, it was because she was more accommodating and tolerant than Jim Mensah. Also, Charlotte Osei was not doing the bidding of anybody. That's from Shangava. Mujib?
I think I will use my 10 minutes to just look at this issue. So now first, I just want to draw my brother's attention that on the issue of Article 45, the functions of the Electoral Commission, he said he do agree perfectly with Uncle Kosi Pratt, but He has no choice because he has to, because that is the party position, and that is why the party, National Democratic Congress, is in court with the Electoral Commission, because they want to know whether or not the Electoral Commission has the mandate. It's within the mandate of the Electoral Commission to compile new voter register, because they are saying they have to compile it once and subsequently be revised, and that is it. When respect to Honorable, he also said the President's statement, said the Electoral Commission and NIA were exempted from the executive instrument. But then, if that is the case, the meetings, subsequent IPAC meetings, were not organized well by the Electoral Commission by dividing them into two. But I want to say that it is true when they are not, they were exempted. But the protocols of Ghana Health Organization, no organization in this country or group of people are exempted. Before we all came in here, but we started observing the protocol. You wash your hands, you sanitize, and you are in. And we tried to go by the social distance. Because the life of Ghanaians matter. The life of Electoral Commission workers matter. And the life of those people Electoral Commission invite for the meetings, i.e. the political parties, is very crucial. So therefore, it is incumbent on the Electoral Commission and all those people they are inviting within their premises or anywhere to go through the protocols that we are all emphasizing, that we must go through to save people's life. That is very important. Let's take the NIA. Even when they were dragged to court and they won, but because of the life of the people of Ghana, they suspended the exercise in the eastern region. The whole exercise was suspended because where COVID is in and nobody knows, COVID doesn't know NDC, MPP. So you have to be very, very strategic. And they had to suspend because they need people, they need to save people's life. So that is very, very important. Sena, on another issue of appointees, my brother listened to Honorable Suhini, and he tried to situate the party that Madam Jim Mensah attended. I don't know his source. But Sena, since when you are my friend, I'm here, you are there. So if you are celebrating your party, whatever party it is, and you invited me, so I shouldn't come because I'm A or B. That is not the issue. My brother, you are the NDC, Honorable Member of Parliament. I'm MPP member. We are first Ghanaians, we are brothers. So if today you invited me tomorrow to come for a party that you have organized, so I shouldn't come because I'm appointed in a strategic position. No, I'm coming. But that is where I'm asking your source. No. You are choosing to say it the way it is. It was a part. No, that was the top of the party. No, it was a part. Jane is also aware. Jane is aware that her appointment is different from political appointment.
Oh, really?
Of course.
Well. Justice.
Yes.
Justice.
But that doesn't take away the right. That's socialization. No.
It must be seen to be done.
Anyway.
Yes.
Anyway.
It must be seen
to
be
done. I hear the word intolerance. See now, in this country, talking of intolerance, relating to MPP intolerance in matters of political matters in this country. I don't know, we have forgotten of our history, where we are coming from. When people don't even want people to say, to even look, people use in the 1992-93 hide to go and just meet just to talk about NPP matters across the length and breadth of this country because of the atmosphere at that time, the intolerance posture of the NDC at that time. Even with multi-party democracy, it was difficult. The use of commandos in this country, 92-96 election, and people, you are talking of intolerance. When the records are there, when we got the opportunity in the Fourth Republic to open up the country and give people the opportunity, say your mind, say what you want to say, but that right to say should be exercised cautiously because it has to go with responsibilities. That is very important. So, Uncle Kosi Brad, I agree with him because we haven't gotten to where we are now easy. It has taken, some people have lost their life. It has taken us through time to get to where we are now, and we still want to modify and make things better. So people have to sacrifice. It is aware, but we also have to acknowledge that some people today who are even in other side have also contributed their bit in those struggles in this country. So it's all our effort, but at least we too have to do that and be mindful of the fact that we have the right, then the rights are enshrined in the Constitution, but it has to go with responsibilities. And so now on the issue of the compilation, the fight against COVID, the politics is on, and that is obvious. But let me be very fair and candid. Nobody is running away from audit. Whatever, even if the minority has not called for it, but when the time comes, the Auditor General will audit those funds that were released to COVID alleviation fund. It is very important. So by the timing, I don't know whether there are suspicions that some people have embezzled or misused funds or those things. But let's be very cautious. No, we don't run away. It will happen. But the numbers and the easing, it is true the term speech of the president, there has been moderate restrictions. Religious groups, political groups, etc., etc. And you have to, further directives have been given. Some have looked at it, some are going through trying to implement the directive, and others look at it and said, no, that we will still wait and give maybe 2 or 3 weeks to be able to put all these things in place. Yesterday, Friday, there are major mosques around the country. Some did not, but others also did go to the mosques and observe the Friday congregation with the strict adherence to the protocols that have been put in place. Because why are we saying new normal? This is a situation that nobody wishes to find yourself, but we are in. Collectively, we all have to agree together and get out of it. So when my brother is saying that the education to observing protocols is weak, it may be true. But honorable, when you go to your constituency and you are making talk, you don't include your itinerary to educate the people on the need to adhere to all these protocols, because we all have to be talking to the people and disseminating the message is very, very important. Because the people, the life of your constituency people is very, very important.
We all have to, but someone has a budget to do that.
And they are doing so. And they are doing it. And they are, you know, they are doing it. They are doing it. They are doing it. So, but we all have to join and make sure that the people get. Even in Accra here, Sena, last week I went with my friend to Simtres, and as we were discussing, a friend was telling us that no, she doesn't even believe COVID is real. Then I was surprised at her age and level and the people that she interacts with daily basis a week. Then I said, then it is true. Some people still do not appreciate the dangers or the times that we are. Then when we left there, I told myself that we are in trouble as a country, because I thought we were doing extremely fantastic in terms of getting people to be aware. But Sena, I think we have to start again. It is critical. So if somebody today in Accra could look at you and tell you he or she doesn't believe COVID is real, then imagine those at the villages, the hamlets, the periphery, who sometimes they don't have TV, they don't have access to radio station, even when they have the network. You could imagine. So I said no, then we have to intensify as a people, whether MPP, NDC, whatever, it is very critical. We have to intensify education, very important. And the numbers, it is true, they are going up. In the recent times now, we are in the 9,100 and something.
68, 68.
9168, yes. You see, I think before the president came to...
I even said 8,000 plus.
Yeah, the president came with the announcement, but you know where the number... But I think when you look at the president's statement, speech, critical, he knew, and everybody know that after the numbers, they will keep going. Okay. But that doesn't...
Mindset.
No, but even... I will give you an example. I will give you an example. Even
you
places,
have to learn from me.
Even places.
Sena,
but can we tell ourselves that because the numbers are gradually going up, things should become standstill. Everything, there won't be any activity in this country. That is why the education is going on, that we have to learn to live with the virus. So now people have to go and pray. Other things has to be done. Country has to move. What do we do? Else, everywhere in the world, that is what is happening. Honorable said it. Other countries reduce restrictions, open up schools, and the number is shot up. And everybody knows that when there's mass gathering and movement, you are likely to get more people infected. That is it. But in our situation, let's be very sincere. When this whole thing started, Uncle Sena, the point we were all thinking that maybe, Honorable, we will all be being washed away or being devastated like what we saw in Europe and America. But God being so great, that is not what we are experiencing. And our health facilities are not being overstretched. Where we are now is not out of control as a people. And that one, it is not single person. It's the effort of the people of Ghana. Okay. When you look at the president's speech, we are there because he thanked the people of Ghana for the support.
Okay. Okay.
So should we not move on? We have to move on as a people. We have to make sure economy work. People has to pay because they work. Company has to be put to work. It is very important. That is where every country, America, Europe, Germany, France, that is what they are all doing.
Mujib,
but let's stop the politicization.
Thank you.
People must move. I said COVID has come to stay, to at a point become like malaria. When the vaccine and cure is
Thank you, Mujib.
You get it, and you go there, they will treat you.
Dennis Yakuti says, do not get confused or be deceived. The Jezebellistic agenda to disenfranchise many potential Ghanaian voters is for two reasons. First, consolidation of power, as there is no much tangibility on the scale of balance to hold on to by current managers of our public purse, as they would want us to believe. And second, to save the Jezebel itself from reciprocal inevitability, as its competence has been too monumental to spare, should power change hands, and with precedents already in place to follow suit. Shalom. Dennis. Honorable.
Thank you very much. I think that the first thing I should say, dealing with COVID, is that statements like we must learn to live with COVID are irresponsible. I'm saying it straight, because the truth of the matter is that you don't know enough about COVID to know whether you have to live with it or not. SARS came. SARS was an illness, an infection. It hasn't behaved like malaria or other infections. Ebola came. Ebola spread, all of a sudden it dies. Every once in a while it raises its head up, especially in the Congo area, and then it goes down. So we do not know whether COVID is actually going to be one of those illnesses that will actually disappear at some point, come back again, or it will go continuously and it's something that you have to deal with. So it's premature, and this is the problem that exists. A lot of statements that are being made are made without the requisite knowledge, and people, perhaps because they have to say something or want to say, come up with generalized statements which are dangerous. It may be that your statement may be right. It may be that your statement may be wrong. You'd couch your statement with, in a certain context, saying like, oh, from what we know so far, it may be that we may have to live with COVID. Also, we are going to, you see, when you say we are going to live with COVID, or we should learn to live with COVID, actually it's a categorical statement. And for me, the truth of the matter is nobody knows enough about COVID anywhere in the world at this time to be making certain categorical statements. However, with COVID, we know certain things. One, it's extremely, extremely infectious. One factory, one person, 500 and something people after that, almost 600 in the end. It can resurge. Even when it seems like it's going down, it can come back. That is also established fact. It can start slowly and then escalate without any real rhyme or reason as to why. So it looks like it's not doing anything, or you have it under control, and then it surges. Anytime restrictions are lifted, in most countries, you get a surge. which means that you have to be careful how you go about it. There is no cure for COVID. This is also fact. Although with drugs, we are able to recover or build the immune system to a stage where you don't actually contract it. It is also fact that we have a lot of asymptomatic people, which means that people will get the disease, will never show any symptoms, but they are able to transmit. So that is also fact. Fact, our numbers are going up. Not at a slow rate, at an even rate, more or less climbing. So we are not even at the downside of any curve. The most two important aspects of what we know is that, one, we don't have the best data upon which we are making decisions. And that is linked to the manner of testing. You see, in order to get the best data of COVID, you must have mass testing. You must not just say, I'm going to test people who have the illness or through contact tracing. You must say, look, we've noticed that certain people in this area are ill. We will test everybody in that locality. And for you to be able to do that, you must get rapid testing kits. We have not introduced rapid or accepted any rapid testing kits into the system yet. And we are not doing any mass testing. In fact, in some areas, people who were involved in the contact tracing, because of either policy we are not sure or lack of payment, their numbers have reduced. So anytime you are looking at the figures, if somebody is not telling you how many people, new people, and I'm not talking about over new people were tested, before you get the number of people who are actually said to be positive, you really don't know, have a good or have any idea of the rate of spread. We don't have all these issues. That is why we are saying caution, caution, caution. And after the caution, or even before the caution, education, education, education. You have given a good example. Yes, a lot of people are beginning to think that this thing is a myth. It doesn't affect us. It's not this thing. It is life, it is real, and it's not by mistake that all these things are being put in place. And it's also not good to say, oh, our systems are able to cope with it where we are. So we would. The question is, if it rises, will our systems be able to cope with it? And that is one of the WHO requirements. Are you in a position to deal with any surge or this? Even countries with better equipment, better hospitals than we have, when they had a surge, they were in trouble. People were just dying one after the other. So let us be clear. We must know where we are and what it is that we are trying to achieve. And you, with the issue of COVID at the moment, we are saying that if you are lifting restrictions, be careful how you go about it and know the potential risk. So if you had rapid testing kits in the country by now, one of the things we would have said is that as much as possible, all this money that we are collecting from donations, part of the 1 billion we got, should have been spent on a rapid testing kit. So that when you want to send children into school, and the teachers, at least before they go in, test them. Because it's expensive, but you must test them. Why? You have a good idea, which is that when they go in, nobody is going to visit them, nobody is going to come, they cannot leave, they are in, and they are locked in. That is fantastic. But if you lock in people who are already infected, then it's a zero effect. In fact, what you are doing is you are ensuring that everybody else becomes infected. So before they go in, you must make sure that the person who is coming in is not infected. If you cannot do that, all these things that you have put before create a problem for the school. Because it takes one teacher teaching 6 different classrooms, walking up and down the desk, looking at the students, you have a problem. So the teachers, the staff, should be tested. Anybody who is positive is not allowed to come into the school. You need a rapid test that to get a result within 2 to 4 to 6 hours. As they come, they are tested. Within 2-3 days, you know those that can enter the school and those that can't. Once you are deemed to be positive, it doesn't mean that maybe you haven't yet come, it hasn't, manifested itself. Maybe 3 days later, a week later, it can manifest. But you are reducing the risk, at least at the point of entry. If you don't do that, all these restrictions you are saying, and it's been shown, even those who have put in those restrictions have closed, South Korea, they have closed their schools. Again. So we are very clear. I've listed these things for people to understand that without mass testing and without upping the education, lifting the restrictions can be problematic, because churches, funerals, and outdoorings and weddings is the time that our older folk who are more vulnerable will come out. All this time they've been indoors. So our mortality rate is low. Now church is open. Weddings. I have to go and see my daughter. Oh, she's getting married. Outdooring. She's had a child. I have to go and see the child. Funeral. Oh, Kwame has gone. Let me go and see her. They are going to start coming out. If they pick up those diseases, your mortality rate is not going to stay as low. So we have to be extremely careful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Pratt.
No, there's so very little time that I'll just try as much as I can to do everything in the next 3 minutes. One, the science of lockdowns, the science of dealing with pandemics and so on, is about 500 years old. So let nobody pretend that we are being hit by some virus and that we are doing something out of the ordinary. Everything we are doing today was done 500 years ago, was done 300 years ago. As a matter of fact, more than 16 years ago, George W. Bush went to the U.S. Congress to ask for authorization to prepare for the emergence of this virus. Barack Obama, in his first year in office, actually started putting in place measures for dealing with COVID-19 and so on. So those who want to pretend that this thing hit us all of a sudden and so on, they don't know what they're talking about. Indeed, if you're talking about this particular virus and its outbreak in Wuhan, in China and so on, the evidence is that maybe by October, November last year, it had already started, causing havoc and so on. Now, the point I want to make is very simple. What we are doing here has been done by other countries, and there have been consequences. France, they decided to open the schools. In less than 1 week, they closed the schools again because there was a surge. You understand? Germany decided to open the gates of the churches and so on. One church had 200 people attending a church service. At the end of the day, 100 of them were down with COVID-19. Half, 50% of those who went to that church were down with COVID-19. So we ought to be careful, and we ought to monitor the situation very, very closely. Okay. We are talking about easing the stress, the poverty and so on of several people and so on. One of the groups we have conveniently forgotten in Ghana is musicians and artists. For some musicians, they haven't worked for 3 months. They are crying and so on. Nothing has been done for them. People in the arts industry. Nobody is thinking about how they eat and so on. I think it's important, if we want to promote the arts and so on, to also pay some attention to the arts and so on. Now, all I'll say is that, look, we need to be guided by the experiences of all other people and to be bold enough to review these measures and to stop the recklessness of looking at everything within the prism of an impending election. That is most dangerous. Most dangerous. You understand? So here we are, and I agree with my brother, Honorable Alex Segbefia, that indeed the most reckless statement to make is that we should learn to live with we should learn to live with COVID-19. I mean, that's absolutely reckless, and I fully agree with that. You understand? So the measures have been announced. We ought to monitor the situation, and we ought to be able to reverse some of the measures which have been announced, because really we can face a lot of danger and so on. You know, Sena, right now, I am fully convinced that the figures we have are not a true reflection of what is happening on the ground. One, because we are not testing enough. Look, in China, in one province, 11 million people were tested in 3 days. Compare that to what we are doing here. 11 million tests in 3 days. So what we're doing here is child's play. It will never give us the full scope. Again, we are not conducting post-mortem on all the people who are dying. At one stage, we had a strong suspicion that Accra, Newtown, Nima, and Mamobi had become epic centers. Unfortunately for us, this is also the place where many of our Muslim brothers and sisters live. And when they die, no post-mortem is conducted on them. You understand? Perhaps, in this crisis, we've got to make a firm decision to conduct post-mortem on any and everybody who dies. It becomes an imperative. You understand? We should respect people's religious beliefs, we should respect people's religious practices and so on. But in cases of national emergency like this one, it's important to know what kills every and anybody. And I will recommend very, very strongly that if it is possible, we should engage in dialogue which should lead us to the position where every dead person, we should conduct a post-mortem on them. Because it will help us to understand the full spread, you know, of the disease and so on. I think I've said enough.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Just two messages. Joe Nabila in Tamale says, Mujib, the reason why people don't believe in the reality of COVID is the attitude of the MPP government. A situation where you put restrictions on public gathering, yet NIA continued the registration of people. The distribution of food to people in group during the restriction period, the realization of restrictions during the period the COVID infection is spreading, when this and other actions and inaction of the government are taken into consideration, one is tempted to believe that the whole issue of COVID is just a political deception. Kojocho Mbwafo says, Mujib, there's zero basis to equate malaria to COVID-19. One is a parasitic, is a known parasitic infection that has a cure. The other is a deadly viral infection that cannot be cured. Malaria is not contagious. Stop wishing on a star. And that's coming from Kojo Chumbafo. I just had to quickly check on the website of the Ghana Health Service before. He's watching. He's always watching. He's always watching. I had to quickly check on the website of the Ghana Health Service before I give an update as to the cases. 9,168, 42 deaths, because the situation has been fluid this week. You don't, the numbers change very fast. For all you know, we will be getting somewhere by tomorrow, or even today. By this afternoon, we'll be hearing some more. So you have to take very good care of yourself. Even if you can, even if you do not wear mask at all, when you get to public places like markets, among others, please wear those masks and take the precautions. Constant hand washing is very, very critical, and keep a distance at all times. Very, very important. Never, never forget those safety precautions that have been put in place. And also, to those of you who are still thinking about going to church, the decision is yours to make. My name is Sena Nombo. You heard Mr. Kwesi Pradinia, who is managing editor of the Inside newspaper. You heard a former minister of Health, Mr. Alhaji, and also a member of the COVID-19 technical team of the National Democratic Congress. Mujib Rahman is a member of the communications team of the New Patriotic Party, and Honorable Alasan Suini is member of Parliament for Tamale North. A big thank you to the crew here at Pan-African TV. And 2.3 FM, a big thank you to them. They are a major partner radio station within the greater Accra metropolis. And also a big thank you to our several radio partners across the country. Have a wonderful weekend and a wonderful week.
May God bless him, Ghana show boy, Africa's great song, Sergeant Dr. Kroma.